The dog who freezes is not always the calmer dog, and the dog who moves away is not always the more fearful one. A lot of owners get that backward. One dog sees a stranger and backs out of the interaction. Another goes completely still. One dog hears a loud sound and slips behind your legs. Another plants their paws like they've turned to stone. On the surface, the moving dog can look dramatic, sensitive, maybe even avoidant. The frozen dog can look stubborn, shut down, or weirdly defiant. But very often, the dog who moves away is still coping. The dog who freezes may be closer to overload, and once you really see that, a huge amount of dog behavior starts making sense, because this is one of those everyday moments people misread all the time. Your dog stops on a walk and refuses to move, or they hesitate at a doorway, on the sidewalk, at the vet, near another dog, when someone leans over them, when a child runs past, when a hand reaches down too fast. Sometimes they retreat. Sometimes they just stop. No barking, no lunging, no big scene. Just stillness. That stillness gets interpreted in all kinds of human ways. Stubborn, manipulative, lazy, being difficult. He knows exactly what he's doing. And to be fair, that assumption feels reasonable because what you can see is behavior. What you can't see is the nervous system underneath it. And that's where the real story is. Dogs do not all process stress in the same outward style, just like people don't. Some get louder, some get quieter. Some move, some lock up, some do both, in sequence. A dog may first freeze, then flee. Another may try to leave before they ever get close to freezing. Another may look fine until you notice the tiny signs that they are working very hard not to fall apart. So when one dog moves away and another dog freezes, you are not looking at good behavior versus bad behavior. You are looking at different stress processing strategies, different survival math. At the most basic level, mammals have a limited set of options when something feels unsafe, overwhelming, or uncertain. People love to say fight or flight, but behavior science has always been more nuanced than that. There's also freezing, orienting, inhibiting movement, increasing distance, seeking social support, and sometimes shutting down when the system feels trapped. In dogs, these aren't abstract concepts. They show up in very ordinary moments, on walks, in greetings, around handling, at the groomer, in the living room when the vacuum comes out. Movement away is one strategy. It creates distance. Distance lowers pressure. If the dog can leave, even by a few feet, the nervous system often gets a little more room to regulate. Freezing is another strategy. But this is the part that matters. Freezing is not doing nothing. It is the body doing a lot. A stress freeze is active. Muscles hold. Breathing can change. The body gets still because stillness is being used as information gathering, self-protection, conflict avoidance, or momentary paralysis when the system is unsure what action is safe. The dog is not empty. The dog is full of calculation, full of conflict, full of sensation. That's why the same stillness can be so misleading. To human eyes, it can look calm. To the dog, it may feel like the moment everything got harder. Researchers in canine cognition and ethology, including Adam McCloskey and others who've spent decades studying dog social behavior, have shown how exquisitely dogs read context. Dogs are not reacting only to the obvious thing in front of them. They are reacting to posture, pressure, distance, history, predictability, your tension on the leash, where the exit is, whether they've seen this pattern before, and whether they believe they have any control over what happens next. That last part is huge. Control changes stress. If a dog feels they can move away, they often will. If they feel they can't, freezing becomes more likely, and suddenly that dog refusing to walk looks very different. Maybe they're not refusing at all. Maybe movement stopped making sense. Think about a dog on leash approaching something they're unsure about. A person says, "It's okay, go say hi." The leash tightens. The dog leans back. The person steps forward. The dog stops. From the human side, it can look ridiculous. We're just standing there in public, everyone watching, the dog glued to the ground. But from the dog's side, several things may be happening at once. They want more distance. Distance is blocked. Social pressure is rising. The body is aroused. The brain is split between conflicting impulses. Go, don't go. Stay safe, don't make it worse. That split often produces stillness. Behaviorists call this conflict behavior. Two incompatible motivations collide, and the body jams. Approach and avoidance at the same time, curiosity and caution, attachment and fear. The dog may want information and safety simultaneously. That doesn't always look like clear action. Sometimes it looks like a statue. And that's where a lot of frustration begins, because humans tend to trust movement more than stillness. If a dog backs away, we understand the message. If a dog freezes, we often start negotiating with them, coaxing, pulling, bribing, laughing, apologizing, insisting. But the freeze was already the message. It said, "I can't process and move at the same time." It said, "This is too much pressure." It said, "I need this moment to change before I can." Now here's the next layer, and it's one of the most important. Not all freezing is the same. Sometimes a dog pauses because they are orienting. They heard something. They're assessing. Their body may still be soft. They may sniff, blink, shift, then continue. That's not necessarily distress. It's information gathering. A stress freeze feels different. The body tightens. The mouth may close. The weight shifts back or locks forward. The movement becomes sticky. The dog may stop taking food they normally love. The eyes harden or widen. Breathing gets shallow. The pause doesn't flow naturally back into movement. And then there is a more serious kind of stillness. Shutdown. This is where learning history matters. If moving away has worked for a dog before, they're more likely to choose it again. That's basic learning theory. Behavior that creates relief tends to get used. But if escape has repeatedly been blocked, ignored, punished, or made irrelevant, some dogs stop offering it. This doesn't happen because the dog is weak. It happens because the dog learned something about the world. Behavior science, going all the way back to Martin Seligman's work on helplessness, showed something deeply uncomfortable but important. When an animal repeatedly experiences that its actions do not change an aversive situation, it may stop trying to act at all. In real life with dogs, that doesn't mean every frozen dog is helpless, not even close. But it does mean that some patterns of stillness are not simple fear, they are history. A rescue dog who goes flat and silent during handling may not just be submissive. A dog who stops dead every time they're pulled toward other dogs may not just be socially awkward. A puppy who freezes when strangers lean over them may not be being dramatic. Sometimes the body has learned that stillness reduces harm, reduces attention, reduces unpredictability, or at least prevents things from getting worse. That is not disobedience. That is survival memory. And this is why two dogs in the exact same situation can look completely different. One steps away, another freezes, one barks and then creates distance, another lowers their body and goes still. The trigger is only part of the story. The rest of the story lives in temperament, early experience, previous outcomes, arousal level, and the relationship around them. Attachment matters too, more than many people realize. Studies by Josef Topol and colleagues adapting attachment research for dogs helped show that many dogs use their caregiver as a secure base. In plain English, your presence changes how big the world feels. A dog who trusts that you will notice them, advocate for them, and not push them past what they can handle often has more behavioral options. They can glance at you, move away with you, recover faster, and stay flexible. But if a dog feels conflicted, unsupported, or socially trapped, options shrink. And when options shrink, bodies freeze. This is especially important with rescue dogs, sensitive puppies, and dogs whose signals were missed for a long time. People sometimes think attachment means clinginess, but attachment is really about regulation. It's about whether being with you helps the dog stay organized inside their own body. That's why the same dog may freeze with one person and move away with another, or freeze in one environment and not another, or freeze when you're tense, rushed, embarrassed, or determined to just get through it. Dogs are reading all of that, not because they are overthinking, because they are social. There's also a biological style component. Some dogs are naturally quicker to move. Some are quicker to inhibit. Genetics don't decide everything, but they shape tendencies. Breed history can influence whether a dog defaults toward scanning, holding, controlling movement, seeking distance, or staying close under pressure. Add early socialization on top of that, and you get very different outward stress responses from dogs who may be feeling a surprisingly similar internal load. Which leads to one of the most powerful reframes in this entire conversation. The dog who moves away is not necessarily less stressed. They may simply be more able to act on the stress. And the dog who freezes is not necessarily calmer. They may be less able to. That changes everything, because now retreat doesn't look rude or antisocial. It looks intelligent. It looks like self-protection before escalation. It looks like a dog saying, "I know what I need right now, and it is space." Honestly, that is often emotional competence. A dog who can move away instead of exploding is not failing. They are communicating early, and the dog who freezes is not giving you a hard time. They may be having a hard time in a way that doesn't look dramatic enough for humans to respect. That is the tragedy of stillness. It gets underestimated. People intervene late with noisy distress and early with quiet distress. Barking gets attention. Lunging gets attention. A frozen dog can be standing right there, already over threshold, while everyone says, "See? Hes fine." Hes not doing anything. But not doing anything may be the whole warning, because freeze can be a bridge state. Not always, but often enough that it matters. Some dogs freeze before they flee. Some freeze before they growl. Some freeze before they snap. Not because they are unpredictable, but because the earlier signals were too subtle, or too quiet, or too inconvenient for humans to notice. That's the tension point. The goal is not to panic every time your dog pauses. The goal is to learn the difference between a thoughtful pause and a pressured freeze. Pay attention when stillness gets longer, harder, more frequent, or shows up in the same contexts. Pay attention if your dog stops taking food, stops responding fluidly, seems stuck at thresholds, flattens during handling, or looks good only because they have become unusually shut down. Pay attention if retreat suddenly disappears and is replaced by rigid stillness. Sometimes that means the dog is not feeling better. Sometimes it means they have fewer options left. And yes, if a behavior changes suddenly, or a dog becomes newly reluctant to move, or handling seems to trigger freezing in a new way, pain can be part of the picture too. You don't have to become alarmed. Just stay honest. Behavior is information, not betrayal. So, what do you do with all of this? First, you stop arguing with the communication. If your dog moves away, don't treat that as a social failure. Distance is data. Your dog is telling you what helps. If your dog freezes, don't jump straight to, "How do I make them do it?" Ask, "What made movement feel impossible here?" That question is so much more powerful. Was the approach too direct? Was the space too tight? Was the leash creating pressure? Was the person looming? Was the dog already stressed before this moment even started? Did the dog have a way out? Did they trust that you would hear no? When you ask those questions, the behavior stops being annoying trivia and starts becoming a map. You begin to notice patterns. Your dog freezes more when strangers bend over them, but not when people turn sideways. They move away if given a loose arc, but freeze if approached head-on. They cope better when you pause before the doorway. They struggle when greetings are forced. They recover faster when you lower pressure instead of filling the silence with reassurance. That is not small progress. That is relationship. Because beneath the visible behavior, what's really happening is not rebellion. It is regulation. It is a nervous system trying, with the tools it has, to get back to safety. Sometimes safety means motion. Sometimes safety means stillness. Sometimes safety means checking whether you understand the message. And I think that's the part that hits people emotionally once they truly see it. These moments are so easy to dismiss. A dog stopping on a walk, a dog backing out of a greeting, a dog freezing at the vet door, a dog going quiet when touched in a certain way. They can look like little inconveniences. But to the dog, they are often moments of truth. Moments where history, body, memory, instinct, and trust all meet in one tiny behavior. One dog says, "I need space," by leaving. Another says, "I need the world to slow down," by becoming still. Both are speaking. And when you learn to hear that, you don't just understand stress better. You understand your dog better. You stop measuring them only by what they can perform in public, and you start noticing how they protect themselves, how they ask for help, how they reveal what safety feels like to them. That is where compassion gets smarter, not softer in a vague way, sharper, more accurate, more useful. Because once you understand that freezing and moving away are different forms of stress processing, the question is no longer, "Why is my dog being like this?" The question becomes, "What is my dog telling me about this moment?" And that is a completely different relationship. If your dog tends to freeze, or move away, or switch between the two, I'd love to hear what it looks like in real life. Tell me the exact moment it happens and what you've noticed around it. And if you want more of this deeper kind of dog psychology, where ordinary behavior starts revealing something much bigger, subscribe and stay with me here.